Toma had never been to this part of the forest moon before. The trees here glowed with a soft blue light, and strange sounds echoed through the air like whispers. It was peaceful, yet mysterious. Toma, a human explorer, loved moments like these, the feeling of being alone in a strange world, surrounded by unknown things. He had been traveling with a small team, but they were far ahead, setting up the main camp. Toma liked to explore by himself. It gave him a chance to see things others might miss. The night sky was dark but filled with bright stars. Toma had set up his tent in a small clearing, a place where the glowing trees formed a circle around him like a natural fence. He sat near the entrance, reading his data pad, when suddenly, the wind picked up. Dark clouds gathered quickly, moving in faster than he expected. The temperature dropped. Lightning flashed in the sky, and Toma felt a small thrill of excitement mixed with worry. This was not an ordinary storm. He zipped up his tent and crawled inside just as the first heavy raindrops began to fall. The wind howled around the tent, making it shake. Toma's heart beat faster. He hoped the storm would pass soon. Then, a bright flash lit up the sky. Thunder roared loudly, shaking the ground beneath him. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the woods nearby. It was too close to be just a falling tree. Toma froze. What had hit the ground? He grabbed his flashlight and carefully unzipped the tent flap. Outside, rain poured down in thick sheets, but through the curtain of water, he saw smoke rising in the distance. Something had fallen. Something big. Without thinking twice, Toma grabbed his raincoat and boots. He had to see what was there. The storm still raged, but he moved quickly, following the smoke. As he got closer, the rain slowed, and the wind softened. In the middle of a small clearing, he found the source of the smoke, a strange, small metal pod, half buried in the dirt. It looked old and damaged. Sparks flew from cracks in the hull, and strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Toma's eyes widened in surprise. He had never seen anything like this before. Carefully, he stepped closer and looked inside a small opening in the pod. At first, he saw nothing but darkness. Then, something moved. A small creature lay inside. It was no bigger than a rabbit, but it was unlike any animal Toma had ever seen. It had soft fur that shimmered in the faint light, long ears that twitched, and eyes that glowed gently like tiny stars. The creature was breathing, but it looked weak. Toma reached out with a gentle hand. The creature blinked slowly, then closed its eyes again. Toma's mind raced. Was it hurt? Was it dangerous? He carefully lifted the creature and wrapped it in his jacket. It felt warm, soft, and strangely comforting. Back at his tent, Toma set the creature down on a clean cloth. The little alien opened its eyes and looked around. It made a soft chirping sound, like a bird. Toma smiled, feeling a strange connection. "I'll call you Lilu," he said softly. "Because you remind me of something small and bright." Lilu blinked, then looked at him as if she understood. The rain stopped outside, and the stars came out again. But inside the tent, a new story was beginning, one that would change Toma's life forever. The morning light spilled softly through the glowing trees, painting Toma's small tent in shades of blue and green. Outside, the forest was calm again, but Toma felt a strange excitement inside. He woke up to a soft rustling sound. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then he heard something close, something breathing. He opened his eyes slowly. Right beside him, curled up like a small furry pillow, was the alien creature from the crashed pod. She was breathing quietly, her glowing eyes half closed. Her soft fur shimmered gently in the early light. Toma blinked in surprise. How had she gotten inside the tent? He smiled softly. "Good morning, Lilu," he whispered. The creature opened her eyes fully and looked up at him. Then she blinked slowly, as if saying hello. Toma sat up carefully so he wouldn't scare her. He wanted to learn more about this strange little being. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Lilo tilted her head and made a small chirping noise, soft and friendly. Tomo laughed quietly. "You like to talk, don't you?" He reached out slowly, holding his hand palm up. Lilo sniffed his fingers and then, to Toma's surprise, she reached out a tiny paw and touched his hand. The touch was soft and warm, like a gentle spark. Toma felt a connection that was hard to explain. It was as if the creature trusted him already. He stood up and looked around the tent. The rain had stopped, and the glowing trees outside cast a calm light over everything. Toma decided to leave the tent open for a while. He didn't want Lilo to feel trapped. Outside, he found some small forest fruits and leaves. He brought them back to the tent and placed them near Lilo. She sniffed the food, then nibbled on a small berry. Toma watched closely. It was clear she was hungry but cautious. As the morning passed, Toma tried to communicate with her. He pointed to himself and said, "Toma." Lilo watched carefully. Then she pointed to herself and made her soft chirping sound. Toma smiled. "Okay, Lilo. We can learn together." Despite the peaceful moment, Toma knew he had a problem. The small pod was badly damaged, and his communicator was still offline because of the storm. He was alone on this strange moon with an unknown alien creature. What did she want? Why had she come here? Lilo seemed happy near him, but she also watched everything carefully. Sometimes she would jump up suddenly and run to the tent entrance, ears twitching. Toma noticed she was very alert. Like she was ready for something. At one point, Lilo climbed onto his backpack and started pulling out small objects. She seemed curious about everything. When Toma tried to stop her, she chirped loudly and looked at him with bright eyes, as if saying, "Don't worry. I'm helping." Toma laughed. "All right, you're in charge for now." The rest of the day passed slowly but with little surprises. Lilo followed Toma everywhere he went. When he explored the nearby trees, she darted between the glowing plants, jumping and playing like a small forest spirit. Toma found himself smiling more than he had in days. But as evening came, something unexpected happened. Toma was sitting by a small fire outside the tent when he felt a sudden cold breeze. He looked up and saw Lilo watching him closely. Then, without warning, she hopped onto his lap and pressed her small face against his chest. Toma froze for a moment. The contact was warm and comforting. Suddenly, Lilo lifted one paw and pressed it firmly against his shirt. A soft blue light appeared where her paw touched him. Toma looked down and saw a glowing symbol, a small, beautiful shape that shimmered softly. Lilo blinked at him and made a chirping sound that was softer than before, almost like a whisper. Toma felt a strange feeling inside. He wasn't sure what the symbol meant, but it felt important. He gently touched the glowing mark. Lilo tapped her own chest where the same symbol shone brightly. Toma's heart beat faster. Was this a sign? A kind of bond? Lilo's eyes met his, shining with trust and something deeper, maybe hope. Toma smiled softly. "Okay, Lilo. I don't know what this means yet, but I promise to keep you safe." The little alien blinked happily, then curled up on his lap again. That night, as the stars shone high above, Toma sat beside the fire and thought about the strange turn his life had taken. A small alien, glowing with light and mystery, had chosen him. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, sunlight poured gently through the blue glow of the trees, filling Toma's small camp with soft light. The forest was quiet and peaceful, but Toma felt a strange tension in the air. Lilo was awake and alert, moving around the tent with quick, careful steps. She seemed more confident than before, but also more watchful. Toma poured some water into a small bowl and placed it near her. She drank eagerly, her glowing eyes shining with energy. As Toma packed a few supplies for a short walk, Lilo followed him closely. He noticed how she moved with surprising grace and speed, her ears twitching at every sound. The forest seemed alive around them. Strange birds sang high in the trees, and the glowing plants swayed softly in the light breeze. Toma felt calm, but also curious about Lilo's strange behavior. Suddenly, she stopped and stared at him, her eyes fixed and serious. Then, with a quick movement, she jumped onto his chest. Toma gasped, surprised by her sudden closeness. Lilo pressed her small hand firmly against his shirt, right over his heart. The soft blue symbol she had made before began to glow brighter, spreading warmth through his chest. Toma reached up to touch the glowing mark, feeling a gentle pulse under his fingers. Lilo looked deeply into his eyes, as if trying to say something important without words. Toma swallowed hard. "What does this mean, Lilo?" he whispered. She chirped softly and tapped the same symbol on her own chest. Toma remembered the moment he found her, weak and alone in the crashed pod. He realized this mark was not just a simple sign. It was something deeper, a connection between them. Lilo's glowing mark seemed to bind her to him in a way Toma didn't fully understand yet. As he stood up slowly, Lilo jumped down and began to pace around him. She sniffed the air, then looked back at Toma with wide eyes. Toma felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility. Somehow, this small creature had chosen him as her protector, her friend, or maybe something more. He decided to test what the mark could do. He raised his hand and touched the glowing symbol on his chest again. At once, a soft light spread from the mark, surrounding both of them with a warm glow. Toma felt calm and clear, as if the forest itself was watching over them. Lilo chirped happily and jumped into his arms. Suddenly, the peaceful moment was broken by a sharp noise, a rustling sound coming from the trees nearby. Toma's heart raced. He held Lilo close and turned toward the sound. From the shadows, a large creature appeared. It was unlike anything Toma had seen before, covered in thick armor plates, with glowing eyes and sharp claws. The creature growled low and slow, watching them carefully. Toma's first instinct was to pull out his weapon, but before he could move, Lilo's fur began to glow brightly. She let out a loud, sharp shriek. Toma felt the air around him pulse with energy. Without warning, Lilo leaped forward with incredible speed and strength. Her small claws tore into the creature's armor, surprising Toma with her power. The big creature stumbled back, growling louder. Lilo's glowing mark on her chest shone like a bright star. Toma stood frozen, watching as the tiny alien fought bravely against the much larger beast. Finally, the creature gave a loud roar and fled into the forest. Lilo landed softly on the ground, her fur still shining faintly. She looked up at Toma, chest rising and falling quickly. Toma's heart pounded with awe and relief. She's strong, he thought. More than I ever imagined. Lilo trotted back to him and tapped the glowing mark on his chest again. Toma smiled, feeling a new respect for his strange companion. That night, back at the campfire, Toma stared at the stars above and thought about what had happened. Lilo was not just a helpless alien who had crashed on this moon. She was a fighter. She had chosen him for a reason. And the mark, this strange, glowing symbol, was more than a sign. It was a bond of trust, power, and perhaps something neither of them yet understood. Toma promised himself to protect her, no matter what. Because in this strange new world, they were no longer alone. They were partners. And together, they could face whatever came next. The morning sun rose slowly over the glowing forest. Light spilled through the tall trees, casting long shadows across the soft ground. Toma stretched and prepared for another day of exploring the strange moon. Lilo was already awake. She sat near the entrance of the tent, her ears twitching as she listened to the sounds of the forest. Her glowing eyes followed Toma as he packed his small bag. Toma smiled at her. Ready for another day, Lulu? She chirped softly, standing up and brushing her fur against his leg. Today, Toma planned to walk deeper into the forest. He wanted to find the source of the strange glowing plants and understand more about this world. Lilo stayed close, moving quickly but carefully beside him. The forest was alive with sounds: birds calling, leaves rustling, and the gentle hum of insects. As they moved deeper, Toma noticed the plants grew brighter and more unusual. The blue glow seemed to pulse with life. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke the peaceful scene: a low growl from nearby bushes. Toma stopped immediately. His heart raced. Before he could react, a large creature burst from the undergrowth. It was big, larger than any animal Toma had seen on the forest moon. Its body was covered with thick, hard plates that looked like armor. Its eyes glowed red, and its sharp claws dug into the soft earth. The creature growled fiercely, blocking their path. Toma reached for his small weapon, but the creature moved too fast. Lilo stepped forward without hesitation. Her fur began to glow brighter and brighter, lighting the clearing like a small star. She let out a loud, piercing shriek that echoed through the trees. Toma watched in awe as Lilo leaped toward the creature with surprising speed and strength. She scratched and bit, her small claws tearing at the creature's armor. The big beast stumbled backward, surprised by the tiny alien's power. Lilo was strong and fearless. Toma felt his heart pounding in his chest. This small creature, whom he had thought weak and helpless, was a fierce fighter. The armored creature growled again and charged toward them. Lilo jumped aside quickly, avoiding the attack with ease. She landed gracefully and immediately struck back. Toma realized then that Lilo's glowing mark was not just a symbol, it was a source of power. The glow around her seemed to grow stronger during the fight. Finally, after several moments, the creature gave a loud roar and ran back into the forest, disappearing into the shadows. Toma breathed a sigh of relief. He knelt down next to Lilo, who was breathing hard but looked proud. "You're amazing, Lilo," he said softly. She chirped happily and pressed her glowing paw to his chest again, where the blue symbol shone softly. Toma reached out and touched the mark. The warmth spread through him once more, calming his nerves. After the excitement, Toma decided they needed to find a safer place to camp. He packed quickly, and with Lilo by his side, they moved toward a small hill nearby that offered a good view of the forest. As they walked, Toma thought about the strange connection he now had with Lilo. She wasn't just an alien visitor. She was a protector, a friend, and maybe even something more. At the top of the hill, they found a small flat area surrounded by thick bushes and glowing plants. Toma set up a new camp, and Lilo immediately began exploring the space, marking it quietly with her glowing paws. That night, as the stars twinkled above, Toma sat by the fire and watched Lilo carefully. She seemed calm now, but ready for anything. He knew the forest held many dangers, but with Lilo's strength and her strange glowing power, he felt safer than before. For the first time since arriving on this strange moon, Toma felt hope. He and Lilo were no longer just two lost creatures in the dark. They were a team. And together, they would survive. The next morning, the air was fresh and cool. Toma woke up early and stretched his arms. Lilo was already moving around, exploring their new camp. She sniffed the glowing plants nearby and then returned to sit close by Toma's side. Toma looked at the damaged pod they had found days ago. It was still smoking softly, and the metal surface was cracked and bent. His communicator, which had stopped working during the storm, was still silent. Toma felt a small wave of worry. He needed to send a message to his team. He needed help. But for now, he was alone with Lilo on this strange moon. Suddenly, the communicator beeped softly. Toma's heart jumped. He grabbed it quickly and saw a weak signal. He tried to send a short message: "Found alien. Need pickup." Location coordinates sent. After a few seconds, the communicator stopped again. The signal was too weak to keep a connection. Toma sighed. At least now someone knew where he was. Lila watched him closely, her glowing eyes curious. Toma patted her head gently. Don't worry, Lila. Help will come. Later that day, Toma was examining the pod again. He wanted to understand where Lila had come from. As he looked inside the broken pod, Lila suddenly jumped onto a small control panel that was still glowing faintly. She pressed a few buttons with her tiny hands. Then, with a quick movement, she pulled out a small round sphere from a hidden compartment. The sphere glowed softly, and Toma could see faint images inside it. Lila brought the sphere to him and touched it gently. The sphere projected a clear image into the air, an alien city, filled with tall buildings and shining lights. But the city was damaged. Smoke rose from some buildings, and the sky was dark and cloudy. Toma watched carefully as the images changed. He saw small groups of alien creatures running through the streets. The last image was of Lila herself, surrounded by others who looked like her, all with the same glowing mark on their chests. Suddenly, the image changed to a battlefield: fire, explosions, and confusion. Toma understood the message without words. Lila's home planet was destroyed in a war. She was one of the few survivors sent away to find safety. The glowing mark was not just a symbol of friendship, it was a sign of her people, a mark of survival. Toma looked at Lila with new respect and sadness. You are so brave, Lila, he said softly. She chirped softly and looked at him with trust. They were both far from home, both alone in a strange world. But now they had each other. As the day turned to evening, Toma decided to rest. He sat by the fire, watching Lila play with small glowing stones she had found nearby. Suddenly, Lila stopped and looked toward the forest. Her ears twitched, and she made a soft warning sound. Toma stood up quickly and looked around. From the shadows, he saw movement, small shapes slipping through the trees. Lila's glowing fur brightened as she prepared to defend. Toma realized the forest was full of unknown dangers. But now, with Lila by his side, he was ready. Together, they could face the challenges ahead. That night, as stars sparkled high above, Toma and Lila sat close together. They shared a silent promise, to protect each other and find a way home. The morning light was soft and warm as it filtered through the glowing trees. Toma and Lila had rested well after the night's alert, but the feeling of being watched still lingered in the air. Toma prepared a small meal and shared it quietly with Lila. The little creature ate eagerly, then jumped down to explore the camp once more. Toma looked at the glowing symbol on his chest, still shining softly from the mark Lila had left. It was a bond now, a connection that felt stronger every day. After breakfast, Toma decided to follow the trail of the strange movements they had seen the night before. He hoped to find out if the forest held friends or more dangers. Lila stayed close, alert and ready. They walked quietly through the thick blue trees, following broken branches and crushed leaves. After some time, they came upon a small clearing where the ground was scorched and dry. In the center lay strange footprints, much larger than any animal Toma had seen before. Lila sniffed the air and made a soft warning sound. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind a tree. Toma froze. The figure was tall and slim, with skin that shimmered like the glowing trees. It wore simple clothing but carried a small staff that pulsed with light. The stranger's eyes locked on Toma and Lila. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the figure raised a hand in greeting. I am Cora, the stranger said in a calm voice. You are not from here. Toma nodded slowly. No, I'm not. I'm lost. And this is Lila. Cora's eyes softened as she looked at the small glowing creature. She is one of the last, Cora said quietly. Her people are few now. Toma felt a sadness in her words. Can you help us? he asked. Cora looked thoughtful. There are dangers in this forest, ancient and powerful, she said. Your friend's mark will protect you, but only if you stay close. Tomo looked down at the glowing symbol on his chest. It feels like a promise, he said. Cora nodded. It is. But promises can be broken if you are not careful. Lilo chirped and rubbed against Toma's leg as if to remind him of their bond. Cora studied them both and then spoke again. There is a place nearby, a hidden temple where your answers may lie. Toma's eyes brightened. A temple? Yes, Cora said. But it is guarded by creatures older than this forest. If you want to find the truth about Lilo's people and why she was sent here, you must be brave. Toma thought of the fallen pod and the glowing sphere. This was the next step in their journey. We will go, Toma said firmly. Cora smiled and nodded. I will guide you as far as I can. With that, the stranger led them deeper into the forest. As they walked, Cora told them stories of the forest moon, how long ago, great powers protected the land but were forgotten as time passed. She warned of shadows that still moved in the dark, seeking those with glowing marks. Tomo listened carefully, feeling both fear and excitement. They were no longer just explorers or survivors. They were part of something much bigger. After hours of walking, they reached the edge of a deep valley. At the bottom, hidden by thick trees, stood a tall stone temple covered in glowing symbols. Cora stopped and looked up. This is the place, she said. Toma felt his heart race. What secrets waited inside? What dangers would they face? He looked at Lilo, who was watching the temple with wide, shining eyes. Together, they stepped forward, ready to face whatever the temple held. Toma, Lilo, and Cora stood at the edge of the valley, looking down at the ancient stone temple. The temple was large and tall, covered with glowing symbols that pulsed softly, as if alive. The air around it felt heavy with mystery. Toma took a deep breath and stepped forward. His heart beat fast, but he felt ready. He glanced at Lilo, who stood close, her glowing eyes full of trust and courage. Cora followed silently, her staff shining faintly in the dim light. As they walked toward the temple, the ground beneath them grew cooler. The glowing plants dimmed, and an eerie quiet filled the air. At the temple's entrance, two large stone statues stood guard. Their eyes glowed with the same soft blue light as Lilo's mark. Cora stopped and whispered, "These are the guardians. They watch over the temple and test those who come." Toma stepped forward and touched the stone doorway. The symbols on the temple walls began to glow brighter. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the air, low and powerful. "Who seeks the truth?" Toma looked around, startled. "I am Toma. This is Lilo. We want to learn about her people and why she was sent here." The voice was silent for a moment. Then, the temple doors slowly opened, revealing a dark passage inside. Cora nodded. "The path is yours." They entered the temple carefully. Inside, the walls were covered with glowing pictures, stories of an ancient civilization, brave and wise. Toma saw images of creatures with shining marks, just like Lilo's. As they walked deeper, the air grew warmer, and the soft hum of energy filled the space. Suddenly, the passage opened into a large chamber. In the center stood a glowing orb, floating above a stone pedestal. Lilo stepped forward and touched the orb with her small hand. The room filled with light. Images appeared in the air, visions of a beautiful planet, full of life and light. Toma watched as the story unfolded. He saw Lilo's people living peacefully, their glowing marks a sign of their kindness and strength. But then, dark shadows appeared, enemies who wanted to take their power. The images showed battles, destruction, and finally, the decision to send some of their people away to safety. Lilo's pod was one of many sent through space, hoping to survive and one day return. Tomo looked at Lilo with new understanding. "You carry your people's hope." Lilo chirped softly, her glow shining brighter. The orb pulsed with light and then sent a wave of energy through the room. Toma felt the bond with Lila grow stronger. The glowing mark on his chest shone like never before. Cora smiled. The temple has accepted you. You are now guardians of this legacy. Just then, the ground trembled slightly. The temple's walls shifted, revealing another passage leading outside. Toma, Lila, and Cora stepped out into the bright forest. The moon's sky was clear, and the glowing trees sparkled like stars. Toma felt a sense of peace and purpose. He knew the journey was far from over. Help might still be far away, but with Lila and the mark they shared, he was ready. Together, they would protect the legacy of the glowing marks. They would face whatever came next with courage and hope. As they looked at the horizon, Toma smiled. The alien bunny who crashed into his tent was no longer just a strange visitor. She was family. And their adventure had only just begun.